In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
And the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the face of the deep.
And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good.
And he separated the light from the darkness.
When he created man, he saw the capacity for this same light.
And this same darkness.
Then he sent one man as light to the world.
And we killed him.
But a new morning dawns in the truth of the resurrection.
But how does this simple group of fishermen from Jerusalem
Become the faith of 1/3 of the earth's population.
How does a flighty, impulsive fisherman
Become the leader of a revolution. When the flames of Pentecost spread like wildfire and the church grows by 3,000 in an afternoon.
But the Jewish leaders are irate and the Romans, well, they're suspicious. This must be silenced. Stephen is murdered by stoning under the approving gaze of a man named Saul.
Until he is blinded by the light on his way to Damascus to become the Apostle Paul, the first of many hearts transformed and inspired to transform the world. But he is not content to spread the light at home, but to any and all who would listen. And these Christians are not content to stay silent with their good news.
The Roman Emperor Nero, he finds a scapegoat to blame for all of his failures.
James, Peter, and Paul.
Killed, crucified, and beheaded. Killing Christians becomes a sport and a spectacle in the Roman Colosseum, and crucified Christians are set on fire to light up Nero's gardens at night.
But many Roman citizens are moved by the faith of the Christian martyrs, and they begin to meet them in the underground catacombs.
Another emperor claims that the god Apollo tells him to seek out and murder every single Christian in the Mediterranean.
But within 10 years, Christianity becomes the primary religion of the Roman world, and the new emperor Constantine has a transformation of his own. The days of Roman persecution are over.
But with this free flow of religion and ideas comes confusion and uncertainty. What is truth?
The Universal Catholic Church is the answer, and the New Testament canon is formed in a spirit of unity.
But protection of this unity becomes a breeding ground for division, East versus West, church versus state.
A group of men seek a simpler walk with God, and Augustine's confessions tell us the honest story of a heart transformed.
But there is a grander vision for a transformed empire. And with crosses on their shields and the approval of the Pope, the Crusaders set out to reclaim Europe for Christ in a bloodbath.
The leadership of the church began with a simple fisherman and his friends.
But how did it become this insatiable institution?
It was a question many would ask as they would enter their beloved places of worship.
And those who chose to speak up, well, they were interrogated and burned as heretics.
A small group of friars roam the countryside and share their faith through logic and persuasion rather than the sword. Among them is another heart transformed, Francis of Assisi, who offers up a simple prayer: Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace.
Where there is hatred,
let me sow love.
Where there is injury,
pardon.
Where there is doubt,
faith.
Where there is despair,
hope.
Where there is darkness,
light.
But while the institution is bound in the darkness of a courtroom,
God's plan of light in the hearts of his children cannot be extinguished, as one man's invention meets another man's translation, making the word of God accessible to the masses. The people can now read, interpret, and think for themselves.
And William Tyndale is labeled a heretic. He is strangled and burned at the stake.
Yet another heart is transformed as a common friar in Germany also translates the Bible and cannot keep quiet about the good news he discovers.
After witnessing the buying and selling of indulgences, salvation for those who can afford it,
Luther nails his theses to the door of the church and begins the Reformation.
Civil wars break out all across Europe over what faith will prevail, what truth is truth. Christians killing Christians in the name of God, neighbors killing neighbors in their own homes, all for the cause of a united faith.
But two countries take on a different mission from God, a quest to explore the globe, to bring their faith to a new world. The light is spreading.
But with this new comfort comes the lure of superiority and the temptation of wealth. Well, it demands the inconceivable.
Forgetting their legacy of freedom from from oppression.
The oppressed now become the oppressors. The former slaves now bear the whip.
True followers of Christ are horrified and seek new ways to shed a beacon of light. John Wesley finds a method in the madness, and suddenly a field, a backyard, even a tavern becomes a place of worship. Thus begins the Great Awakening.
Suddenly, the followers of Jesus aren't content to sit at home in the light. No, they actively seek out the dark places to transform the world.
Missionaries travel into unknown territories, and this time not just with the men in the pulpit, but with a woman's touch in the classroom and by the beds of the sick and dying.
Back home, the African slaves listen and learn outside the tent revivals, and they hear the echo of their own cry for freedom from the book of Exodus, yearning for the promised land.
A light shines in the darkness of night as they sneak off to secret worship meetings, alerting each other in code and lilting melodies.
They encounter a new kind of darkness in the hearts of men that went way beyond any proclamation. Those who preached about equality and the love of God, well, suddenly they became the messengers of hatred and fear.
But there were many who would combat this darkness with a message of love, as the inventions of radio and television quickly become tools for the gospel.
But religion is not the only message that spreads quickly over the airwaves. And suddenly people find themselves heading back to church for comfort.
Another great leader emerges with a dream of racial harmony. The words of Jesus to turn the other cheek as a mantra for non-violent protest at all costs.
He leads his people to a promised land that he himself would never see.
In our century, we have seen the light in the healing hands of Mother Teresa.
And the darkness of religious scandals. We still live in a dark world.
But 10 years ago, this church had the opportunity, the calling, a chance to make a greater impact on the world around us.
At that time, the $22 million price tag, well, it seemed almost unbearable.
But God knew, and the people, you, answered the call by investing in this worship center.
Since that time, the light has been spreading throughout Holland and across the globe.
In the past 10 years, we have seen 81 of our own embark out into the mission field.
You have helped to plant 72 new churches in 14 different countries. And 40% of the missionaries that you support, well, they're in countries that don't allow the spread of the gospel message.
You have given thousands of dollars and hundreds of man hours to serve the hurting right here in Holland.
You have been building bridges of redemption for people who are going through divorce, unemployment, and single parenting.
You have invested and invited countless souls to events like the Women's Christmas Dessert and Christmas, Easter productions, and Alpha groups. In the past 10 years, God has answered numerous prayers with over 1,000 baptisms and 1,500 salvations.
A year ago, Central Wesleyan funded the translation of the Jesus film into the Wa language of Ghana. In this time, there have been over 2,600 conversions to Jesus Christ because of this film. There have been 8 churches and 39 Bible studies started.
Where darkness once was,
a light now shines. God has been busy here.
So here we are, 115 years old.
A church full of transformed hearts that want to spread a light across Holland and around the globe.
The question remains in us, what will the future of the church look like?
What legacy do we carry?
The world is waiting.